It's like how kids talk about baseball players. That's how we talk about albums. We're just trying to postpone mortality.
They need that to fill some kind of void that they have.
The search for the Yeti.
He's a duck.
Well, don't interrupt.
Hello and welcome to a bonus mini episode of the Smashing Pumpkast. I'm Frank Garcia Hale.
I'm Pat O'Brien, and with us today is our, you already know her, but she's gracious enough to be our Pumpkast woman on the street. Our field correspondent, Pamela Fisher, is with us. Welcome, Pam.
Hi, thanks for having me.
The pumpkin queen herself.
Yes. And today we are, Frank and I unfortunately didn't get to go to the recent Pumpkins Festival shows that happened. But Pam was there, and so we wanted to pick her brain, get a firsthand account of what it was like, what it sounded like, what it felt like, what it smelled like, all the sensory experiences that we didn't get to have, other than small videos on our phone, which were cool. But
yeah, I mean, we got to look at some of the YouTube footage that people graciously, I can't talk right now, uploaded for us to enjoy, for us who didn't get to see the shows. But I mean, right away, it looked like the band was in prime form. Take us through your day, Pam, like the fact that you got to, so it was the Chicago Riot Fest show was first. Take us through that day for you.
Yeah. Well, I'm a rail person. I'm a barricade. I think they call them rail runners. I've been going to concerts for like 35 years. I'd never heard that until this past weekend. But I mean, for one, I just like to be as close as possible because, when I'm far away, I feel a little disconnected from the whole show. Mm-hmm. But I'm also 5 feet tall. So if one person stands in front of me, I can't see. Very, very few people are shorter than I am. And so I've just early on learned that I have to put in the time, sit in line and, wait all day and then, get my spot. I have a preferred spot on the rail. So I live in New Orleans. I flew up to Chicago actually the day before and went to the bonus day, the Thursday night show, which was Patti Smith and Morrissey.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
And that was amazing. And so I met my friend Heather there. And so she and I got dropped off at Riot Fest outside the main gates. I want to say like 9:45. And there was already probably 35 people in line. And so immediately I was nervous, like, oh, every single one of these people wants to be in front of me and I'm not going to be able to see anything. But looking at the crowd, I mean, there were, different bands playing on different stages. They did a good job of staggering because the main stage and the one level below stage kind of face each other, but they alternated bands throughout the day. So there was never two bands playing at the same time on those two stages. So the sound bleed wasn't an issue. But there was another stage that there was a band who played. I don't know if it was No Effects playing at the same time as Pumpkins. But looking at the line of people who were lined up to get in, I saw some like mohawks and kind of more punk look. And I was like, they're probably not here for Pumpkins. And there was a lot of people who were super excited about Coheed and Cambria. I think I'm saying it right. I'm not familiar with them. But I knew that they would be getting a spot at their stage because they didn't play the same stage, even though they played earlier. Like at least they'll be getting a spot there and then coming over to Pumpkin. So I can go straight for the Pumpkin stage. So yeah, they opened the gates at, I think 11, Riot Fest opened at 11. So we were there about an hour and a half early and the weather was decent. We had to show, proof of vaccination or a negative COVID test to get in along with our ID. And so since Heather and I had gone the day before, we knew the route from the gate to the main stage. So we didn't have to figure out where to go. That's the other thing. It's like if you can go the day before and like figure out where you're going.
Stake it out.
Yeah. So we, once they opened the gates, we went straight to the main stage and I got my favorite spot on the rail. And yeah, then it was just, we have 8-9 hours to wait before the band played. But it was just an amazing feeling knowing, like, I'll be honest, I got to the rail and I touched the railing and I teared up because it was just such an emotional day knowing they were going to come out and play. Hadn't seen them. And I was doing the whole, like, it's been 764 days, like every week leading up to it, like ridiculous. But I mean, just knowing it was going to be their first show in a little over 2 years and just the whole excitement of it. It was like, I almost couldn't hardly believe it was happening.
Yeah, that it definitely came across that there was just like a general vibe of, I mean, obviously music festivals like this, I remember this one was on the books, or the Riot Fest was on the books a while ago, back when COVID was like, will this be over in a month? Like, right. Can we, like, maybe by, like, and I just remember keeping my eye on that one, like, because just things were getting canceled and canceled and canceled. And I remember just kind of holding that one in the back of my head. It's like, if we could get, if that one can happen, like, we'll be in great shape. But it really felt like a kind of, it was like a new beginning or a resumption of life in a lot of ways. But the Pumpkins looked amazing. They looked really cool. I don't know. We could talk about all the look and stuff, but like, it felt like a very, on multiple fronts, like a very special event. Yeah, it was. And each band who came out to play, I mean, you could just tell that everybody was like, is this happening? Like, we're really on stage and playing a show. And, and, leading up to Pumpkins, I mean, I think the one I could talk about most, like the band that played right before Pumpkins, was Motion City Soundtrack. And I had heard of them before, not really familiar with their music. I knew that they were kind of like that, like mid 2000s, kind of like emo pop punk kind of thing. They were good. But they just had that look on their face, like, I can't believe this is happening. And the crowd for them, the crowd was good all day, but the crowd really swelled before them. And all of a sudden there was like a million people behind us. And when they started playing, like, it started pushing. And I was like, oh, I kind of forgot this happens particularly at festivals. But yeah, the crowd, they were, it was just, and there was a lot of, Riot Fest was a younger crowd. So yeah, crowd surfing started, like moshing. And I was like, I didn't expect it. Like, I mean, I've been in pits before. It's been a while, but I just don't know why it took me by surprise. But the crowd it was like, I think I wrote on Instagram, it was like, it's like we had all been in like a, 100-year prison with no live music and then unleashed. And it was just frenzy. So the Motion City Soundtrack, and the lead singer did give a shout out to Pumpkins toward the end of the set. He said, Smashing Pumpkins, I found their music at a time when I had been listening to like hair metal, and I was just starting to listen to like alternative rock. And he said Pumpkins were the bridge between what I was listening to and what I would start listening to. And he said, if you had told me at that, when I was 14 years old, that one day I would be playing on the main stage right before Smashing Pumpkins, I wouldn't have believed it. So, that endeared them. I was like, okay, now I like Motion City Soundtrack. That was awesome. Yeah. It's a good reminder too, that it's not just us who are, and like our sort of online circles who are psyched to see the Pumpkins. Like, they're headlining this thing, it's I don't know. Do you feel, we'll talk about the actual set too, but do you feel that as a fan, that there's some kind of like, I don't know, broader appeal happening again with them? I do. And, I think when I was younger, I think all of us in our younger days were a little bit more kind of intense and judgmental. It's like, my band's the best band. If you don't think that, then like, whatever. But now
it's when I meet people who are more casual fans, I don't know. It's like it almost makes me happier, like to know that it's not just our circle of like really hardcore people, because, you know, because you have to have all kinds of fans, you know, for the band to be successful. It's not going to be just, you know, just us. And when we were out in line, there was a younger couple standing behind me, and I don't know, I turned, they had said something about there was an ambulance went by or was trying to go by and traffic wouldn't let them go. And the guy was like, well, I guess in Chicago, if you have an emergency, you're going to be waiting for a little while. And I turned, I was like, oh, where are you from? And they were from Des Moines, Iowa. And I was like, oh, I've been to Iowa one time to see a concert. And they're like, where are you from? So we started kind of chatting. And I said, who are you here to see? And they were like, well, we're here to see a lot of bands. And they named, you know, this band and this band. And we also want to see Smashing Pumpkins too. We've never seen them. Have you ever seen them before? And I said, oh, I've seen them. Yes.
How much time you got?
But yeah, so I, you know, talked to them a little bit, and it was just really cute to see them like excited to see, oh yeah, you know, we can't wait to see what they're going to play. And like, we know they're legendary. And it was really kind of heartwarming to see like younger people like excited about their first show. And yeah.
And as this set list proves, they've got obviously we you know, like their catalog front to back and are into deep cuts and all that stuff, but they've got the hits to please a festival crowd too, you know, of kind of casual fans or people who didn't even know they were ready to be into them.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, they're a legacy act now. I feel like I feel like time is being very kind to their history. You know what I mean? Like, if that makes any sense, time has been kind to their history. But I mean, it really has. Like, it feels like they've reached this legacy type of status now, where people are like, oh, they're on my bucket list to see. You know, where it's just like we have to see. Just like with our generation, there's certain bands like I got to see Rush, or I got to see, you know, Jimmy Page or whatever, you know, Paul McCartney. I got to see these people play. And I feel like that's where the Pumpkins are at right now, like especially with contemporaries like Pearl Jam or somewhere like that, where people are like, you know what, I like their music. Maybe I'm not the biggest fan, but I like their music and I got to see them because it's an experience, you know?
Yeah, I agree. And I kind of forget, you know, it's easy when, you know, your daily life is, you know, they factor into your daily life in some way. You know, there's not a day that I don't think about the band or listen to the band, you know, either because I'm doing it by myself at home or because I'm talking to friends online. Like, you know, just a constant factor in my life. And it's easy to forget how big they are. I don't know if that makes sense. Like it's easy to forget how famous Billy Corgan is and how like huge and legendary they are and also I think because I feel like I've grown with them too. And, you know, when I discovered them, they weren't huge, and I saw them get huge and I just feel so connected to them that, you know, they're to me, they're my band, and I know that they're legendary, and I know that they're, you know, have had worldwide hits and all of the stuff, but also they're my band, and I've seen them so much. Like, their shows feel like home to me. And it's easy to forget that, you know, somebody would walk in and be like, wow, look at this huge band. You know, I've only ever like seen them on TV, and like seeing them in person is like, I love that because I was that way when I saw David Bowie for the first time. It's like, he's a real person. I can see him on stage, and yeah.
I kind of envy that a little bit. Being like, oh, remembering the first time you saw them live and what that experience was and how excited you got to watch for the very, very first time. Yeah.
Although I will tell you that they walked out on that stage, and I know we're going to get to the show, but like, it almost felt like my first show again. And, you know, it's almost the longest I've ever gone without seeing them play since I started seeing them. It might be the longest. It might be like tied. You know, there were a couple of time periods where it was like 2 years, like after the final Metro show and my first Swan show, it was probably 2 years and maybe a month or two. So, but it's one of the few longest times I've gone without seeing them play. But I think just the added, you know, trauma of the pandemic and the just having a ticket and it got canceled and moved and it was like, hopes up and then hopes down. And then, got to a point where it's like, are we ever going to see another concert? Is it ever going to happen? Like, is the music industry changing so dramatically that it's just going to be online shows forever? And it feels ridiculous to think that way, but worlds change, civilizations change.
Yeah.
And like, who knows? And, there were definitely days when it's like, I may never see any bands play again. And so when they walked out on stage, it was like, I can't, it's like my first show all over. It was like seeing them for the first time. And it was just amazing. I mean, yeah.
And you can feel the like a sort of a reciprocal version of that with the crowd and the band. Like the band has this stored up. I mean, obviously they've been very productive in during the pandemic, making new stuff. But it I don't know. They like it seemed like they, obviously there was there was just all this, whereas like in normal times a couple of festival dates like we would have probably seen them on a regular tour, and the festival dates would be like not as big of a concern, like they'd play fewer songs, whatever, but like everything about this felt very considered, very well crafted. Like the set lit, like we were kind of taking bets on what they might play ahead of time. I think Frank correctly guessed based on sort of just good guesses or things that had kind of been teased on the social media or whatever. I think Frank called it with Drown, which was a great call. But like just sort of a new, and then of course some of the new Sea.Hear songs that had never been played live before. It felt like kind of an updated retrospective of the band, which is really, I don't know, it was really cool. And then I have to say, I think Billy's look was like, it's the coolest he's looked in a long time. There's something about him like embracing the white beard and turning it into like it was very cool. I thought the band looked really awesome.
They did. I know. I said, like, they walked on stage and I looked at them and it was like, this is the coolest band I've ever seen. And I've seen them a million times. I know what they look like, but like they walked out, like every single one of them looked the coolest they've ever looked. Like they just looked amazing. I'm a huge fan of the beard on Billy, and just assumed he was going to shave. I just assumed it. Like, I just was like, well, beard's going to be gone for a little while. And so when he came out and he had the beard, I was like, yes.
Yeah. Well, I think his look in the Witch video.
Yes.
There's something about, as people age, as we all do, like, I don't know, there's like an effect where people actually look younger when they embrace their, like, whatever it is, whether it's like a white beard or whether it's like just whatever, and like kind of lean into it. I don't know. It felt like, and yeah, Jeff looked really cool. I
love his long
James,
hair.
Yeah, like Jimmy, I kind of just saw him drumming, which is like, that's what matters, but he always looks good. But yeah, it felt like kind of a because the band's visual the band's fashion and sort of visual aesthetic is always kind of marks like chapters in the whether it coincides with an album cycle or whatever, but it felt like maybe we're stepping into a new era of the band. Obviously, so there's a lot of new music around the corner, so that's exciting.
Yeah I mean, their look and the few Sea.Hear songs that we did hear just had me really like, I really would love a Sea.Hear centric tour.
Yeah.
That would be, or set of shows, mini tour, something that would be amazing.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the set list, because they did kick it off with a song off of Sea.Hear. The first song was "The Color of Love." What did you think of that?
I was so happy. It's one of my favorites from the album, and I was like, I have my favorites from Sea.Hear, and I was talking to some friends, like what we want to hear. It's like I have like what I want to hear and what I think I might hear, and "Color of Love" was in both of those camps. So it made me really happy that they came out and opened with that. I love that they open with a new song because I think that just really like sets a tone and makes a statement. It sounded great. I love that Billy didn't play guitar on it because I really love when he stalks the stage and does his dance moves. It's like makes me very happy. It sounded so good. Yeah, I was just really happy about it.
And that's one of the ones that you can find online too. I was surprised. I kind of wish that we would have been able to see Sierra and Katie there, but you know, they have to use a backing track. I understand that there's limitations, especially with an album like Sear, where there's so much going on and so many layers. Like you kind of have to adapt somehow. And it was cool that they got to kind of test it out that way there.
Right. I mean,
Yeah.
I have a feeling that if they were to do a longer tour, that Katie and Sierra would come along and do the vocals. I think since it was just the 2 festival dates, and also like, you know, the band had to go through so much just to play with all the COVID testing, and I think they were just trying to keep it as
Simple as
small
possible.
as they could. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, and the backing tracks worked. And I don't think anybody was distracted, because sometimes you're afraid that is it going to be a distraction? It's like, where's that coming from? It's like, it sounds artificial, but it didn't. It sounded really organic, and you know, it was good.
Awesome.
And then we go from that into Bullet with Butterfly Wings. So you got the new one, and then you got the classic, the crowd pleaser.
Yeah, and the crowd, you know, I wondered, you know, during Motion City Soundtrack, they were moshing and crowd surfing, and you know, I thought maybe they'll calm down before Pumpkast comes on. They did not calm down. That was the roughest crowd I have been in. I mean, it's kind of appropriate that they played Quiet for the first time in 27 years, because that's the roughest crowd I've been in 27 years. It felt like Lollapalooza in 1994. Like, it was just the whole set, constant, being pushed against the barricade, being like shifted left and right, crowd surfers the entire time, every song. And I was the place on the rail where they came over. I don't know if it's because I was short, and it was like, oh, there's a place we can get over easily. And so I spent most of the set with a security guard standing like right in front of me, catching people as they came over. And I would like lean. And of course, I'm not looking away. I'm just trusting that you're going to keep somebody from crashing on my head. There were lots of moments where I was like sideways, like dodging people, but yeah, the crowd. And when they played Bullet, I mean, the crowd just erupted. And it was just frenzy.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this, Frank, on, I think probably when we covered Melancholy, but how like there are certain songs that the opening, in this case, lyric or whatever it is, riff, or, you know, are just so embedded in, like, you, even if somebody couldn't tell you who the Smashing Pumpkins were, I feel like you'd be hard pressed to find a person out there above the age of, I don't know, 10 or something who hasn't heard the words, the world is a vampire, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like, it's just one of those, not even songs, just one of those moments in a song that is just so deeply, I think, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but it feels like that would get everyone's attention, or at least spark something in everyone listening.
Especially this rendition of it, right? Because they kind of went back to the classic, because for a while they were still doing that kind of Adore era, kind of jungle drummy intro, and where it was kind of that variation of it, and then people eventually catch on being like, oh, it's Bullet.
Right.
But this time it was just like pretty straightforward, right?
Yeah, there was a little bit of that drum intro. You know, it wasn't quite like the album, but it was not like the, you know, extended jungle drum kind of where people are like trying to figure out what it is. Yeah. And like, you know, they started it and everyone was really into it. And, you know, I'm not one of those people that doesn't like the hits, you know, I mean, because, you know, most of the time a hit song is a hit song for a reason. It's not like Bullet's one of my favorite songs, but I always get really proud, especially when I'm in a crowd that's not necessarily only there for Pumpkins, like in a festival setting, when people are like, oh, we'll check them out or whatever. And then they play a song like that and the entire crowd goes nuts. And I'm like, yes.
Yeah.
It makes me proud that like, that's our band up there. And all of these people are into this song and it's like so rocking and yeah.
That's amazing.
Then they follow it up with another huge single with Today, you know?
Yeah.
Right? That's the next one? Yeah. And like, I mean, to have that 1-2 punch, especially for people who are kind of casual fans too, I'm sure they're just like losing their mind because most of those casual fans are probably like, I hope I hear these certain songs, and those 2 songs are immediately like, all right, we're checking them off.
Right.
Yeah. But it didn't feel like, based off the video, it didn't feel like they were checking it off, being like, all right, we're going to play this for the normies or anything like that. You know, it just felt like everything about that footage and the pictures and everything, they just felt like it looked like they were revitalized, you know?
Yeah. I mean, you could really tell that they were happy to be on stage, happy to be playing, and happy to, and you know, people have really always given the band and particularly Billy like a hard time about, you don't want to play your hits. And that's really never been the case. And I think it's one of those things that people take like a small nugget of something that happened and like blow it into something. And then almost like an urban legend, like people just believe it forever. And people who aren't even like, I have some friends who are more casual fans and they'll like see a set list and they'll be like, oh, well, I'm glad Billy's embracing his past and playing some hits. I'm like, he never stopped playing hits.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just really, you know, when I heard in advance that it was going to be like from 1990 to 2019, like a retrospective set, it really was, but it didn't feel like, you know, oh, here's a review of all of our stuff. It was like, here's a set full of songs that are, you know, some big hits, some newer things, some, I mean, I don't know that there were any really like deep cuts, but like deeper cuts, you know, non-singles and stuff. But it all sounded like so fresh. And there wasn't a moment on stage when it seemed like they were like, okay, well, you know, let's just phone it in and play the hit song for somebody because it's a festival and we know we have to. It never felt like that.
Well, these aren't like, you know, obviously for like big fans, these aren't deeper cuts, but the next 2 songs, Crush and Drown, I mean, right there, that's like, you know, I don't know, when was the last time they played Crush? I don't know, it must have been a while, right?
2008.
Yeah. Okay, so that's been a minute. And I don't know, I mean, Drown felt really special, like that felt like I don't know. I mean, I think the fact that it was in Chicago too, like, I bet there were like some light bulbs going off in people's, you know, like, I'm sure hearing Drown was pretty exciting to a lot of people.
Yeah. Drown is, well, I mean, first Crush, like, Crush was one of those moments where I was like, am I hearing what I think I'm hearing? Like, I love this song so much. I never expected to hear it at Riot Fest. It just never, you know, that's not the kind of song that you think you're going to hear at Riot Fest.
Yeah.
It fits so perfectly in the set. It was gorgeous. Billy his voice is so beautiful. He sounds, you know, better than he ever has. And it was so pure. That was one of those like spiritual moments that I had that night. Like, oh, everything is perfect. There's not one thing that's wrong in this world right now. Watching this band play this song that I love so much. And then Drown, like, that was a really emotional, like 1-2 punch. And I the very first time I visited Chicago, it was 1995, and I flew up. I was, you know, talking to a guy online, and so he drove me. He lived right outside the city, so he drove me into the city, and we drove in on Lakeshore Drive, and so I was like making that curve and seeing the skyline. We were listening to Q101, and as soon as we started making the curve, Drown started playing. It was like movie scripted moment, and like I started crying because like I had, you know, been in love with this band at that point for what, 3-4 years, and had, you know, Chicago was like the place. Like, I have to go to Chicago. I want to live in Chicago. I want to like be there, and like hearing Drown and being on that, you know, seeing the water and seeing the sky. And so every single time I hear Drown, I go back to that moment. And, you know, being there, you know, in Chicago and, seeing them again, after all this time and all this uncertainty, and then hearing Drown. Yeah, I cried. I cried several times, but that was one of the times I cried for sure.
Yeah, that's really cool. I think we're going to be covering I don't know if this happened in the final Metro show. Were you at that show, by the way, Pam? You were, so maybe you'll remember. There was a funny James and Billy banter where they were teeing up Drown, and they were like, it was 2000, it was final tour, if not final show, but they were like, this next number you may remember from a little grunge film starring Matt, and they could like name it, like they couldn't remember like which,
Right.
which Matt was in it. I don't know if it was the final show. It was near the end, but
I think it was the final show that.
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah. Anyway,
yeah,
funny moment.
I'm pretty sure Billy's never even seen Singles. I think that's what he said. So, like,
I actually watched it. My wife and I watched it within the last year or two. Music is great, and I mean, obviously, it's a great soundtrack. I love, like, walking down that memory lane. But as a movie, it doesn't age super. The guy that you're supposed to think is a really cool guy doesn't quite come off that way anymore, and it doesn't age the best in terms of just romantic storylines. But
yeah,
it's got all the trapping, all the set dressing is very cool, all the music and all the got cool coats of paint with bad bones. All right, so then of course we mentioned this already, but a lot of people were kind of, this was a bit of a headline, but they play after that Quiet, which hadn't been played in, some people were saying 27 years, some people were saying, I saw somebody write 24 years, then Billy said
that's since
maybe
94.
Yeah, but he said maybe he played it like at a fan meet and greet like 12 years ago or something like that, but in earnest it hadn't been played since 94, right?
I think it's been 27 years since it's been played like full band at a regular show. I think he played it like one time at one of those pre-show like VIP like 3-song things where they play some songs, but I mean, you can count that if you want to, but I don't really count it. Like, that wasn't like full rock power Quiet. That was like, my brain kind of folded when they started it. And it's one of those things where like it started and I was like, it's not what I think it is. Like, what is this song? I didn't believe what it was. And like, what are they playing? What are they playing? And then when it like really kicked in and there was no denying what it was. When I tell you, I screamed like a horror movie shriek, like Michael Myers was running after me, like I was Jamie Lee Curtis. I like screamed, and then I screamed again, and then I turned to Heather and I think screamed like right in her face. It was just like uncontrollable. And then I was like jumping and like screaming, oh my God. And I love Quiet. I love that song like so much. And it was the combination of like, I really love that song. It rocks so hard live. And so I knew what was coming. And so I had to calm myself down so I could actually enjoy the performance because I was freaking out so much that they were playing it. It was amazing. And
how did the crowd as a whole react to that? Was there a palpable reaction to it?
It got to the point though with Riot Fest that the crowd was just like dialed up to like 1,000 and really never even for like Disarm, it was like pushing and stuff. Like they were just happy to be moshing and crowd surfing. When we talk about Sea.Hear.Now, I can tell like that was a little different, a little more nuanced of a crowd who seemed to like really appreciate what was happening. The Riot Fest crowd were like super into it, but like it got to a point where you couldn't tell like the difference in the crowd level between the songs because it was just like we're rocking out and we like love what we're hearing and we're just going for it.
Yeah, if we would have been there in person, Pat and I, if we would have heard that song, we would have been picking each other up and just being like, wee-hee!
Yeah. And it probably would have taken me a second to connect because I know I would have I would have recognized it. I would have known like, okay, this is Siamese Dream. What am I hearing right now? But yeah, I would have flipped too because you just don't expect that.
No,
it was really cool.
Well, we don't want to keep you all day, Pam. So we'll move through the list a little bit,
Yeah.
and then we also want to talk about the other festival.
Mhm.
But so next up, we switch into Seer mode. They play Seer and Witch in order. What? How did those sound to you?
I loved Seer. I was so looking forward to seeing that because I figured we would. And like the Billy dance moves were amazing, and it was just so great to see it live. You know, we saw the Tonight Show version of it with the band all in different places. Like, oh, they're all on the stage together, getting to play this song. Like, how happy they must be performing it. It was amazing. Which was incredible. And it was, I think, the first one of the Seer tracks where I was like, whoa, this is really different from the album. You know, very like heavy and like chuggy. I'm not a musician, but like chuggy guitars, you know, just like, and I mean, just hard and heavy and thick, like metallic thick. Yeah, it rocked so hard. And you could just see how much fun they were having. And I was watching it thinking, you know, all these people are like, where are the guitars on the new songs? Oh, they are in full effect here. Like there's no denying that this is a like guitar assault in this song.
Yeah. And Billy did a little Q&A afterwards where I think that he was asked like, what did you enjoy? He mentioned Witch as like a highlight for the you know, in terms of being really fun to play. You could totally see that being folded into becoming like a set list sort of staple for years to come, you know.
Yeah.
We talked about that when we listened to Seer, when we kind of did our first impressions about just being like, the song is just obviously made for a live setting. You know, there are certain songs that you just hear on albums where you're like, you got to hear this live. I was kind of surprised we didn't hear Save Your Tears, because that's another one that I feel like, oh, that would be really fun to play or hear live, because it feels like it would have that same effect as Witch, as far as like a guitar and bass type of focused live sound. But it was really cool to see that they played that, and it sounded great from the videos that I saw.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So next up, we're talking Solara. They play, followed by That's
with Meg Myers.
Oh, right. Yeah. And that was very cool. We got to watch some footage of that.
So were you familiar with Meg Myers, Pamela?
I wasn't. I had heard of her. I knew that she had been signed to Sumerian. And somebody recommended her to me and said, I think you would enjoy her. And I just never got around to checking her out. You know, it's like one of those things where, I'll check it out. And then I kind of forgot. And so I didn't even know who was playing on the stage until we got there that day. And I was like, well, I guess I better see who we're seeing. So I pulled up the schedule on my phone. I was like, oh, Meg Myers, I know people who like her. Like, that should be interesting. She was great. I really enjoyed her set earlier that day. And she did a cover of Kate Bush's Running Up That Hill at the end of her set.
Man, I love Kate Bush so much.
Yeah, me too.
They played that on the radio quite a bit too. That was kind of like her biggest hit so far. Because I was familiar with her maybe 4 years ago or so when she first started. Or 5 years ago. A couple of songs were pretty catchy. But like, then she had that cover that was pretty good. But I was surprised to see that collaboration, but I thought it was pretty cool.
She came out and it was great. I mean, you know, a little tiny part of me was like, oh, but I want to hear Billy sing all of it. But I said, well, I don't think she's gonna come with them to the next festival, so I think I'll probably see that. So let me enjoy this. Like, and it is special anytime like something like that happens, and you know, you can see it. But you could see on her face how excited she was to be on stage with them. And that that made me love her. I was like, I really need to check her out now, because you could just see that she was like, I'm on stage with Pumpkins. It was cute. But yeah, they sounded great. She did a great job. And it was fun.
Awesome.
So then what do we got next? Okay, so
Ava Adore.
Then we go into Ava Adore. I don't know if I saw footage of this one. Did you, Frank? Or
I can't remember if I did. Because I know like there are certain songs that are missing from like YouTube that people uploaded. I think the whole show is up there now. I think because when I looked earlier today, I think most of the clips are up there. but yeah, I think this was more of like kind of the way they had been playing it, like on the tour and stuff, like the last tour, right?
Yeah, it was the same version, and it's one of my favorite songs, one of my very favorite songs. I'm like, I want to see that in every single set for the rest of my life. Like it always makes me feel the exact same way. Like I just love it. I love everything about it. I love the song. I love the stage performance of it. Like you will never hear me get bored of Ava Adore ever.
Mm-hmm. And now that you mention it, I did watch it because I remember the crowd. A lot of people were singing along to that one, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Which you wouldn't. I don't know. I don't know what the general festival going like public remembers of like Adore. You know, like I have such a distorted like obviously. Bullet with Butterfly Wings is one thing, but I don't know how many people how that song got to, you know?
Yeah. Although probably a lot of people, it was like the one song they liked on Adore. You know?
True.
Yeah, that's
I don't
true.
know.
Yeah.
I would imagine.
That's a good
That's
point.
true.
Yeah.
We had friends I know I had friends like that who only liked that one track and then they just kind of ditched the rest of the album. But then like you get another huge hit right after that. Arguably up there with Bullet with Butterfly Wings as far as recognizability. I just realized the Zoom said you're about to raise your hand. I don't know why it has that like little feature now, but okay. But anyway, tonight. So how was the reaction for that? Was that kind of on the same level as Bullet, where it was just like, I would imagine that's kind of the type of track that you hear where people immediately are like, I know this.
Yeah, it was. And there was something funny that Billy said like right before they started tonight because they finished the song and he got his guitar and he walked to the mic, and so he turned and he addressed James, and I can't remember if it was just like, you know, hello, hope you're having a good time. I think it was, you know, James did that, like, I hope you're all having a reasonable time. But Billy said something really funny. He turned to James and he said, you know, James, I'm an arty fuck. And this is the point where, you know, I might play something like really like obscure that the crowd wouldn't appreciate or whatever, or we could play a big hit. So what should we do? And then they went into tonight. But I was just like, I'm an arty fuck. That's the funniest thing. As he stands in his gown and his makeup, like, right. Are you an arty fuck? Or are you really? Yeah, but yeah, it's not. I mean, of course, I mean that song everywhere in any town in any city gets a. But like Chicago,
especially
seeing that song in Chicago and like the whole like City by the Lake. I mean, everybody, people are crying. I mean, it's there's just no. It's hard to even describe the feeling of seeing them play that song in Chicago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's a special song on so many levels, but especially for Chicago. And we're listening to that final Metro show, especially too, when they play that song, it really did like seem to pack a very big wallop, you know, during that show. We'll talk about it more when we do that episode, but yeah.
Yeah. Cause even any song with even just this is like more of a heartstring tugging reference to a specific place, but even like any song that names any place and you're in that place and it's played live, like people are going to go nuts. But this one, like actually, you know, like this is like a slightly deeper version of that phenomenon, you know?
Right.
It's not like, you know, I don't know. Randy Newman's I Love LA, do they name a bunch of other cities too? Or am I,
well, I
just an example of dancing in the streets, maybe. That's
Well, Heart of Rock and Roll, the Huey Lewis one, just gets everywhere.
That's what I'm thinking.
So then they just cover all their bases. Yeah,
that's the one that's what I was thinking of. Yeah.
And I was thinking about on the Shiny tour when they played Try, and when he's like naming the cities, and he would replace like with the Nashville Tears, he would replace it with whatever city he was in, they were in. And anytime like everybody's like, yeah,
people love it.
Except for when I saw him in Nashville and I'm like, oh, it's really Nashville Tears. It's not
right. Yeah.
He like changes it slightly, Murfreesboro or something like that.
Right, yeah. Franklin Tears.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we got Stand Inside Your Love right after that, which is one of my personal faves. And then Cherub Rock, which I'm sure there's a whole there's Cherub Rock with the 1-2 punch of Cherub Rock and Zero back to back. I'm sure that was just like a ferocious storm.
Yeah, Cherub Rock. I mean, I have to say, Stand Inside Your Love is one of my favorites too. I always love seeing it, and it was really good. And I will say, it's just a minor thing, but I know you'll know what I'm talking about when he says "You're all that I dreamed," and like in the recorded version, he like dreamed is like really loud,
Mhm.
and in some of the live versions, he says it a little like softer and more muted, which
Mhm.
is still beautiful. But I always miss that big dream, and
Totally. Yeah.
he did the big dream, and I was
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
happy about that.
I think I saw that. I said, yeah,
Yeah.
that's awesome. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
great moment.
Yeah. But yeah, Cherub Rock and Zero. I mean, the crowd was just insane. And I took some pictures at Riot Fest and just a little bit of video, but I was really like dodging people so much that I just didn't do a whole lot. But most everything else is from Sea.Hear.Now that I actually filmed. So I got a few things, but yeah, Cherub Rock and Zero in particular just got like physically brutal in the pit. I mean, it was just, people were just acting out. And I mean, the crowd, it was like one after the other, like crowd servers. I mean, it really was like mid-90s.
Yeah, like you were talking about not for a minute there, not knowing what our concert's going to come back. Like I always, clung to the hope that the concerts would come back, but I kind of predicted a world where like, concerts for the foreseeable future will be sort of sparsely attended, masked,
Or like
distance
the
things.
pods.
Yeah,
the
totally.
thing,
yeah, and that like things like moshing, which it had been a while for me anyway, pre-pandemic. But you would think that and crowd surfing we might never see again. But
Right.
Whatever,
there are
Pat.
obviously,
I've seen you at a show. You start that mosh pit immediately before they even start playing.
I've been in my
punching
fair
people on
share.
the back of the head. You little
You're like,
troublemaker.
Put me up.
I mean,
Yeah.
honestly, I crowd surfed at my first concert. I've been in many a pit before, and it's fun, but it's also like you get a little older, and it's like,
Oh yeah,
it's like watch the show.
You're like, no, thank you. I'll just step back. Yeah,
sip my one drink and then drive
your
home.
wine. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so Zero
Ramona.
we talked about. Yeah, then we got Ramona,
which was the live debut of Ramona. Yeah. How did that sound like? I don't think I saw footage of that one.
Yeah, it was. I loved it, and I mean, Ramona is not one of my favorites from Sear. I love it. I like it, and I wasn't sure, but it was more. It almost felt more like passionate in the live version, if that makes any sense. I feel like when I listen to the album version, it's almost like listening to like a movie scene, and probably part of it is because I see the video in my head too, but it's almost like watching something. But live, it was I liked it way more live. Like I think it's one of those songs that really like takes on a new life, comes alive.
Yeah.
And just seeing the fun that they have playing it, I think lent to it too. It sounded great.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, that's one of those songs I look forward to hearing. I mean, just all those Sear songs. I would like to just hear Sear front to back live, just to see how they pull it off and like the different variations, and to hear the guitar stuff. That's what with the Tonight Show appearance when they played Sear, it was like really cool to see how they adapted to playing it live. And I was like, oh, I'd like to see more of that with Sear. Hopefully one day, maybe for the 10th anniversary or something, we'll get something like that. Hopefully.
Yeah, I know. Poor Sear is getting lapped but I mean,
we're big fans of it though.
Oh man, so like what a treat to have this really solid, exciting album to kind of hold, like in a year when you didn't have much to get excited about. But I digress. So Ramona, then we get into 1979. Tell us about the crowd's appreciation of that, your reaction to that.
Yeah, that was just like a big celebration. And I mean, sometimes I feel like 1979 is their like biggest, most famous song. And I don't know if that's the case, but sometimes I feel like that, especially when in like a concert situation, when everybody is singing along and like so jubilantly. Like I love that song, and I love that song more now than I did in the 90s. Like I always loved it, but something about being older makes me, and like that's not the kind of high school experience I had.
Right.
Like that song or the video, like I did not have that experience whatsoever. But like now I can kind of be like, oh, I'm a little nostalgic for that experience that really wasn't my own, but I can kind of pretend that like maybe I was that cool in high school.
Right.
But yeah, it just makes me happy. And it almost is one of those songs that just makes me feel like, you know, we're all together and we have survived all these years and we're still all together listening to this band and like at a like it just is one of those songs that makes me want to like hug every single person around me when they play it. And I think everybody was feeling that way. It was just like a big sing-along party in the pit.
Was
That's
that
awesome.
the biggest? Would you say that was sort of like the? Well, you did say that at a certain point it was just the crowd was up here and kind of stayed up here. But was that the biggest like reaction, you think? Or
I think it was the biggest sing-along that I heard.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
During that song, there was points where I could hear the crowd over the band. You know, even though the band was like super loud, but like you could just hear every voice in the whole crowd singing along. And you can tell, I mean, the band loves when that happens too. Like you just see it on their face when, you know, the whole,
I mean, what better feel? It's such an amazing feeling to just be part of the sing along. But if it's your song that people are singing back to, I mean, I can't imagine there's much better, you know, especially after such a drought of being able to have live music.
Yeah. And then so you got the party kind of aspect with 1979. And then you have the come down of being able to hold each other and embrace each other with Disarm a little bit. Everybody just kind of being like, we're going to be okay.
Right.
Yeah. Did that sound pretty great? I don't know if I got to see Disarm online, but was that kind of the electric version, or was it like a little bit more kind of the 2018 version that they were playing?
Yeah, it was a little more the 2018 version, but you know, with the band and you know, along, and Jeff was playing Mellotron on it.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. I mean, Disarm usually like really like gets me in the feels, and I pretty much always cry. You know, it's just such a it's easy to forget. It's easy to not listen to Disarm when you've heard it a million times. Like it's easy to be like, oh yeah, it's a pretty song and I know it's sad, but like when you like really listen to it, and like particularly on the Shiny tour when Billy would come out by himself and like with the visuals, like it really it was so impactful. It's like I kind of forget the song and like what it means and what it's saying. But at Riot Fest, it didn't, because it was still people, like I said, people were still like in party mode. And so like, you know, it wasn't as much, but there were still crowd surfers coming and people were still, so it was a little distracting with the crowd. Like I didn't quite get into the song as much as I like normally would in seats when people aren't like trying to crush me and like jump over me. But it sounded beautiful. And I was happy that they, you know, some bands would stick, you know, like not play some of the like quieter songs or things. And I was happy that they didn't shy away from songs that maybe wouldn't be, even though Disarm's a huge hit, you know, it's not exactly festival friendly as a song.
Right.
So I was happy to hear it.
Yeah. Especially how they go right into Shame afterwards too.
Yeah.
Which I did get to watch, and it sounded incredible. Both nights, I thought. I loved the guitar sound, like that. It sounds incredible live.
I've never heard it sound better. I've seen Shame in all of its forms over the years. It has never sounded better. That song floored me at both of those festivals. Probably my highlight of the show. Just gorgeous and like, of course this band plays the song at Riot Fest. Like, you know, like why would they play Shame? Like why that song? But that's why I love them, because you know, they did. Yeah. And I mean, probably half the crowd didn't know it. Probably, I would assume. But it wasn't like, sometimes those things happen and it's like a momentum killer. It didn't. Like the crowd was still in it and it still got a good reception. But gosh, how gorgeous was that version?
Yeah.
Shame is a song that it wasn't ever one of my favorites on Adore. Like Adore is my favorite Pumpkins album. And I don't know if I truly appreciated Shame until I heard Billy play it in 2019 solo. Like I always loved the song, but like I never would have picked it out as a standout of any set I saw of listening to the album. But something about the past couple years, the way he's arranged it and the way the band played it, and it's a stunning, just like gorgeous song.
Totally. Yeah. It's one of my favorites too, off of Adore. And yeah, it's like a really, I mean, the band, Confidence was not in short support. Like the whole thing felt super just confident, not like they ever don't, especially nowadays. But yeah, it's like, it's such a beautiful song, and it's such a confident move to slot it into this festival set list. It's like you got these crowd pleasers. It feels like there was no amount of like pleasing the crowd over themselves, but that the crowd was thoroughly pleased.
Yeah.
It actually it sounded like it had some power behind it, which I really liked with this version. There was just something about it that had a weight to it that it usually is a pretty calm song, but this one just had, I don't know, you got to listen to it, Pat. You got to watch it. It's really good.
I'm gonna watch everything I can, because I was just sort of trying, like, with the TikTok thing sort of didn't pan out. We both had TikTok loaded up, and it's so,
we got to start using that too, Pat. We got to start like doing little
doing some
videos
dances
and whatnot
and
for TikTok. Now that we have it, we have to use it. Yeah.
I know we have to use it.
I was at the show and I still downloaded TikTok just so I was like, well, it'll still be up after and I can watch whatever the clips. But the service, and I'm sure you've been to festivals, like there was like as the day progressed, there was no signal. Like I couldn't get anything to load, and so I think all the technology just, like the live technology just crashed.
Yeah, that's what I think they said about it, just being like it was impossible to stream anything because nobody.
Right. Yeah.
But then you got to have another surprise. You're ending this incredible set with just another kind of, I wouldn't say deep cut, but definitely, people aren't as familiar with Zeitgeist, especially the track United States, the long jam. You would probably expect something like Silverfuck, or like even, one of the other jams that are a little bit more well known for Melancholy or Siamese Dream. But man, it sounded, I mean, I got to watch the video, and especially like it sounded great. It was really cool. Yeah.
United States is the only set list hint that I had. I knew they were going to play that. And even though I knew, I kind of forgot, and like in the moment of the show, and they started it and I was like, oh, that's right. And that song is just a beast live. It's just, it's just incredible. And like anybody who sees that song, like there was a guy, I was talking to somebody who brought her boyfriend. He's like not super familiar with Pumpkins. We were walking out. He was like, holy shit, I didn't know they were gonna do something like that. Like he was like blown away by that song. And he was like, what album is that on? I gotta check this out. And so we were like, you gotta get Zeitgeist, it's amazing.
But you have to buy it on CD.
Right. Yeah. Can't stream it. It just, I mean, it was just like being hit by a bulldozer. Like just like so heavy, so amazing. They were having such a good time. And then they had a special guest.
Yeah. Guitarist from Nitro. Like I think Michael, I'm probably gonna say his last name wrong, but Michael Angelo Bascio.
Yes. Yeah.
Everybody always messes up my last name, so I feel for it. But I mean, he just came out there and just fucking shredded. Like he just blew everyone. Like it was really cool to see. Because like you saw the pictures earlier, like, oh cool, what's he gonna come out and play? I guess they did tease that though, that he was gonna be playing United States anyway, right?
I think so.
I think they said that earlier. I can't remember, but yeah.
I think Jeff said it Jeff gave an interview and he talked about playing that. So I don't know if everybody knew it or if it's just people who like saw that one particular interview. And I had actually learned a little bit about Michael because Jeff had joined him, like had been like, well, Jeff wrote that theme song for the NWA, Billy's Wrestling Company, their pay-per-view, and he plays on that with Jeff. And so that's how I knew about him first. And then he and Jeff did a Facebook Live kind of interview kind of thing on his Facebook page. And he just like is the nicest man. And so it's just like, so cute to see him come out. And like, they were like, the band was so happy, and seeing like, particularly Jeff and Billy's like reaction to him playing, like they were just having the time of their lives. It was so fun.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, tell us about the set lists were the same for the two festivals, but what would you say like big takeaways in terms of differences between Riot? What was different about Sea.Hear.Now in terms of just like how you felt about it, how they might have played things differently, or just does anything stand out in your mind that was like a difference in the performances or just the vibe of the day?
Yeah, I mean, everybody's asked me like, which show did you like better? I actually liked the Sea.Hear.Now festival performance more. The festival was a little more laid back. I think it was an older crowd.
Mm-hmm.
It was straight up on the beach, and I knew that, and I don't know why I was surprised. Heather and I went the day before, and we saw Pearl Jam because they headlined the night before. And we got there, and I was like, "Oh, we're walking on sand! Like it's like on the beach." And I don't know why I thought like the beach would be in view, but we were going to be on like pavement. No, like you're walking on sand.
Oh my god!
The audience, you're standing on the sand of the beach.
Wow,
that's cool.
And I think it's the first beach festival I'd ever been to. I'm not really a beach person, so I'm more of a vampire. Like, yeah. But the crowd, we went on Saturday night for Pearl Jam, and there were so many people, and it was a Saturday night, and I thought, oh, I hope tomorrow night it's not like people like leaving because it's Sunday, have to go back to work. The crowd was just as big both nights, huge, so many people there. But it was a lot older. I mean, there were some young people too, but like Riot Fest, I felt skewed really young, and Sea.Hear.Now skewed a little older. And the crowd was just as into it, but a little more like respectful of space. There wasn't moshing. I don't think I might have seen one crowd. No, I don't think I saw any crowd surfers. It was just a little more mature, but totally into it. And what I appreciated, and the bands like throughout the day said, you're also respectful. Like this one band that like Strand of Oaks that I think I'd heard of before, but hadn't seen. They were good. They played a couple new songs. There were some of their fans were there too, but a lot of people weren't really there to see them. But the crowd was like paying attention, not talking through it. And these days it's hard to go to a show and not have people just talking everywhere
the entire time.
Yeah,
that's my biggest pet peeve.
Yeah, it's horrible. If I have shushed one person, I've shushed a million. But the crowd, there was so many people. It's like I'm always in the front because I do same thing for Sea.Hear.Now. I got there like super early. We had to like run through the sand to get to the stage, but I got the spot I wanted. And then I see pictures later of the crowd, and I was like, oh my gosh, all those people were behind me. Like that's kind of even scary to look at when you're standing right here and like the sea of people behind you. But even with all of those people, it was such a respectful crowd, super into it, like cheering, singing along, but like just not, it didn't feel casual at all. I don't know. I've been to a festival, both of those festivals didn't feel casual. And probably the first festival they've ever been to where it wasn't like, oh, there's somebody right here who doesn't care at all. And they just came, but it's just a scene. And like, I want to go to the festival. And I don't know if maybe it's because people were just so happy to like be there and seeing a band. Like, maybe there's an attitude adjustment. I mean, maybe we'll start going to shows and people will be so grateful to be there that they'll actually want to enjoy the experience.
We could
I hope so. I hope so. Yeah. Then again, people have a way of, but this has been a thing where like anybody who showed up to either of these festivals, like this is not something you also did last weekend. It's like, or
Right.
maybe, it's like, this is
Yeah.
like you're automatically going to be like appreciative of just the fact that you're getting to do it, like it's
Yeah.
nobody has gotten to do
Yeah.
go to a festival in forever, so, or had before this. So like, yeah,
Right.
that's,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, and I just as far as the performance, I felt like the band was a little more relaxed, having a little bit more fun, and I mean, not that it was like a noticeable difference between the two, but just I could just see at times that they'd already played the one show, and even though you wouldn't have been able to tell if they hadn't played together in 2 years at Riot Fest, I'm sure they felt it. Like every band, because Pearl Jam was saying the night before, and I've seen Pearl Jam a lot of times. It wasn't my favorite Pearl Jam show. Like there was a little bit of rust on them.
Mhm.
But there was no rust on Pumpkins either night.
Mhm.
But I do think See.Hear.Now, it's like, okay, this is the second show we've done it. They played all the new songs. It wasn't in Chicago. I mean, there's always pressure to play your hometown.
Sure.
And so
yeah.
here they are in Asbury Park. And I mean, it was, a beautiful space. All these people, I think they were just having the time of their lives, and you could tell. And it just made us have more fun seeing them have fun. Like the version of Cherub Rock, I put it up on my Instagram. It's like the one I didn't take full video of many like full songs, but I took full video of Cherub Rock. Like it's one of my favorite versions I've ever seen them play because they were just having such a good time.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And the only difference was they played for Tonight he did just with guitar, or what was the difference between those two nights? Or was there a difference?
I think it was the same. It was just acoustic bass and no drums.
Okay.
Jimmy didn't play drums, but I think it was the same both nights.
Okay. I was mistaken when I read the thing because I had seen one of them and I couldn't remember which one I had watched because they kind of just are all uploaded on YouTube right now. So I'm just kind of clicking on whatever songs I didn't see. I forgot to ask because with Riot Fest, was there a worry when it started raining that it would because that happened right before the Pumpkins went on? Was there a fear that it would get canceled?
Yes, there was. It was like right when they started setting up the stage, and I didn't even notice because I was on the rail and I had people all around me, and I wasn't really looking up at the sky at all. And a friend of mine was like, I'm a little worried about this, and pointed up, and so I looked and I saw dark clouds, and I was like, oh, is it gonna rain? Like what's happening? And so they had started to set up the stage, and then a couple raindrops started falling. So then they came out, they covered Jimmy's drum set up. They took Billy's pedals back, off the stage. And so there was probably 15, 20 minutes that nothing was happening. They were over, and you could see people on the side, like on their like walkies, like talking, like, and we were terrified. And I was trying to like, not be negative, just like put it out into the universe, like everything's fine. I think I just kept repeating it to Heather, like everything's fine. It's gonna stop raining. They're gonna play. It's gonna be fine. Everything's gonna be fine. We were terrified, and we did hear we heard a little thunder, and I was like, I know, like if it's raining some, they'll still play. If it's thundering, they're not. If lightning, they can't play.
Yeah. And
I mean, I've been at festivals before where I've like been all day waiting for the headliner, and a storm pops up, and it's called. And there is no worse feeling except for when you've been 2 years in a pandemic and you're finally getting your first show. And like, there's this threat that they're not like, here we are. We've traveled to Chicago. We've waited all day. We're like, so like ready for this. And like, are you kidding me? It's going to like thunderstorm.
Right. You make it right up to
Mother
that
Nature.
point. Yeah.
But it rained, and it probably like rained and stopped raining 3 times while we waited. And so we're just like getting wet, but like, whatever, like we're fine if it rains a little. But then they kept coming out and mopping the stage, which I felt was a good sign. Like I kept like making these, well, if they're doing that, they're not throwing the towel in. If they're doing this, they're doing that. And then when they came, it slacked off a bit, and they came out and they uncovered Jimmy's drum set. When they pulled that cover off Jimmy's drum set, the entire crowd erupted, like in cheers. and we just started crying. Like, oh, this might actually happen. Yeah, we were terrified.
Well, man. Well, man. This thing happened, and that's such an exciting thing, you know, or these things happened.
Yeah.
These two festivals happened.
Yeah.
We appreciate you so much recapping this for us, Pam.
Yeah.
It's this
Yeah.
really, this coupled with the videos that people were kind enough to upload, like, is the next best thing to getting to go. We can't wait to go see him for real next time we're able to. Such an awesome step toward that, because we spent a good year and a half, you know, musing on this podcast about like when concerts might begin to come back, you know. So I remember we talked to Jack Bates at length about not only pandemic problems but Brexit issues that were like, you know, it seemed like, you know, a pretty grim outlook at that point in time. So it's just it's awesome that this got to happen.
Is there anything that you wanted to mention that you wanted to talk about these shows before we kind of hop off here?
I think we covered most everything. I think it was just beautiful to see the band on stage and the crowd and the interaction and you know how happy they were and how happy the crowd was. And I had, you know, a lot of friends at both festivals, and just being back together and having, you know, all of us it was, I think, you know, we all commented several times, we needed this. Like, we've been needing this for so long, but this is, you know, something that we really like. It's just like that light at the end of the tunnel or near the end of the tunnel. And hopefully next year, you know, we can get another tour. I think, and I just have to say, and I've said it a million times, like, this band just gets better and better. And I mean, the reason why I go to so many shows, because like people who don't understand are like, why have you seen them so many times? Like, you know, why one show a tour is not enough? They just get better and better. And you know, even though the two festival sets were the same, everything felt fresh like 2 nights later. But the one cool thing, I saw, you know, Pearl Jam on one night and Pumpkins on the second night, and Pearl Jam played State of Love and Trust, and Pumpkins played Drown. And I was like, I'm feeling very like 1992 single soundtrack. And you know, my very first Pumpkins show was in 1991 when Pumpkins opened for the Chili Peppers and Pearl Jam opened for Pumpkins. And so I saw Pearl Jam for the first time, and then Pumpkins for the first time, and then Chili Peppers. And so in Jersey, I saw Pearl Jam on Saturday, kind of essentially opening for Pumpkins on Sunday, almost 30 years later.
Wow.
I was like, wow, look at this journey we've all been on.
Yeah. And Chili
incredible.
Peppers are touring again too. They released a little comedy skit. I don't know if you guys saw that, but
I did not see that yet.
I haven't watched it yet, but I heard the news. So
it was pretty funny. Yeah.
Well, let's all keep our fingers crossed and hope that tour happens in 2022 or 23 with the new album, because that would be a very epic show. I'm sure another 3 to 4 hour show that we can look forward to, spanning all that stuff. I can't wait for that to happen, and for us to be there with y'all. You know, maybe hopefully we can make it out to these shows. Timing wasn't good for us personally, but I mean, hopefully we can see all of you out there who are watching this and listening to this. We can all party together and just be one big happy pumpkin family, because we're all about that. That's what we love to do here. And Pam, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us. And for us, we're trying this out. We're doing like some video stuff too. We're going to start doing a little bit more of that. But yeah, you can visit us on the socials, Pumpkins Podcast on Twitter, and Smashing Pumpkast on Instagram, cast spelled K-A-S-T, and also on TikTok as well, the same internet handle. Pretty soon we're going to be doing a Patreon thing, as well as Discord and all that fun stuff. So stay tuned for that. Pam, anything that you want to plug or say before we log off?
You know, I just want to give a shout out to the SP fam group that I'm a part of. It's a really positive fan community. We're SP fam group on Instagram, and we have a private Facebook group. and it's just we veer toward kind of mental health peer support and issues, but it's also just a lot of love of the band and like being a positive community, and supporting each other, because the internet can be a rough place,
Right.
and so it's if anybody's interested in checking us out, we always welcome new faces and new screen names in the fan group.
It's really great, and I think it's very helpful, especially during these times, especially.
Yeah.
Well,
well, thank you again so much. We'll be in touch. We'll
This
talk
was so
soon.
fun.
And so glad you got to experience these shows. We are, I would say I'm jealous, but I was just psyched from afar that it was happening.
Yeah. I'm just happy that
like a jealousy was does not describe the feeling. It was like a very positive
rage is what you were feeling. That's what you're trying to say.
I know what you mean, and I'm so grateful. I know that it wasn't easy it wasn't possible for a lot of fans to get to, and I feel very fortunate that I was able to, and I'm so grateful that I got to experience it, and that I got to see some friends out there, and I just do not take any of it for granted. It's the most amazing thing, and the one thing that was a little bit sad about being there was that there were so many people that I wish could have been there too with me. So I'm really looking forward to a tour where lots of us can come together and have these experiences, and it's coming. We just have to be a little patient.
Yeah, it's definitely coming. Well, thank you again, Pamela Fisher, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us. And to everyone else out there, we got a lot more cool stuff coming. Lots of new types of stuff coming, like Frank said. So stay tuned. And until next time, we bid you all farewell and
good night.
Sorry, my headphones and mic died at some point. So
not
quite Abbey Road Studios quality. But we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.